Hello and welcome. This is Yon Cheku with NSM TV, bringing you the latest news. U.S. President Donald Trump returned to the electoral campaign trail with a visit to Pennsylvania, where he promised the revival of industry and jobs in the heart of industrial America. The visit comes as Republicans prepare for the November elections and face economic challenges and declining popularity. The President of the United States, Donald Trump, has returned to the electoral campaign trail with a stop in the key state of Pennsylvania, one of the most important areas in the political battles in the United States. During a meeting at a truck assembly factory, Trump focused on the American economy and industry, temporarily putting foreign policy issues in the background. He accused previous administrations of losing jobs in the industrial sector and said that his policies have helped protect American workers and bring production back to the country. Pennsylvania is considered part of the so-called Rust Belt, the industrial region that has suffered major job losses over the past decades and that remains an important electoral base for Trump. However, the president's economic message faces challenges. The months-long war with Iran has affected the rise in prices for American consumers, while economic data shows that since Trump returned to the White House in January 2025, tens of thousands of jobs have been lost in the manufacturing sector, including the automobile industry. Statistics also show that the production of trucks and heavy vehicles has fallen to its lowest levels in more than 4 years. Despite these difficulties, Trump is trying to turn the November election into a referendum on the direction of the country and his economic policies. As Republicans seek to maintain control of Congress, the visit to Pennsylvania marks the beginning of an intensive campaign, where the economy, jobs, and American industry are expected to be the main topics of political debate in the coming months. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio stated that Iran cannot impose fees or charges on ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz, as this would violate international law. This statement comes at a sensitive time in U.S.-Iran negotiations over a deal that could change the security balance in the Middle East. The United States has drawn a red line over one of the most important energy transportation routes in the world. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio stated that Iran will not be allowed to impose fees or payments for ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz. During a visit to the United Arab Emirates, Rubio said that Hormuz is an international waterway and that no country has the right to demand payments for its use. According to him, freedom of navigation in this area is part of international law and must be respected by all sides. The statement comes as Washington and Tehran are discussing elements of a possible agreement after months of tensions and confrontations in the region. One of the most sensitive issues is control over the Strait of Hormuz, a strategic corridor for global oil and gas transportation. The draft agreement being discussed also includes other issues, such as Iran's nuclear program, regional security, and the possibility of future economic investments. Rubio said that if Iran chooses a new path in international relations, there could be opportunities for foreign investment, but he stressed that this would depend on progress regarding security issues. The U.S. Secretary of State is also expected to hold meetings in Kuwait and Bahrain with representatives of the Gulf Cooperation Council. The Gulf states, traditional allies of the United States, have reacted cautiously to the possibility of closer relations between Washington and Tehran, as many of them consider Iran a major regional rival. As negotiations continue, the Strait of Hormuz remains one of the hottest points of confrontation between American, Iranian, and Gulf power interests. Keir Starmer's resignation has pushed Britain into an unprecedented period of political instability, with 6 prime ministers leaving office within a decade. The cost of living crisis, public debt, immigration, and the rise of right-wing populism are changing the British political landscape. The United Kingdom is experiencing one of the most turbulent political periods in modern history, as Prime Minister Keir Starmer's resignation has made him the 6th leader to leave office within just 10 years. Starmer, who won one of the largest electoral majorities in the history of British politics, remained in power for less than 2 years. The country is now expected to have a 7th Prime Minister, with Andy Burnham as one of the leading names for the future leadership of the Labour Party. But the main question in Britain is, why is no leader managing to stabilize the country? Analysts say that one of the biggest problems is the decline in living standards. For many citizens, wages and living conditions have not improved significantly since the global financial crisis of 2008. The situation was further worsened by the COVID-19 pandemic, the rise in energy prices following the war in Ukraine, and the economic uncertainty of recent years. Britain, which was once considered a model of political stability, is now facing a continuous cycle of crises. In the past, leaders such as Margaret Thatcher and Tony Blair remained in power for long periods and shaped the direction of the country. But after the financial crisis came austerity measures, pressure on public services, and then new challenges such as the pandemic and the high cost of living. Another issue that has divided British society is immigration. Criticism of governments over the lack of control over immigration has strengthened support for right-wing populist forces such as Reform UK, led by Nigel Farage. Experts say that the challenge for the next leader will be enormous. Economic growth, reducing the cost of living, improving healthcare services, and managing immigration. If the new government fails to achieve concrete results, Britain risks entering an even deeper period of political uncertainty, while voters demand change. Data from the Bird Research Station at Tommy Thompson Park shows a significant decline in the number of migratory birds recorded in 2025. Researchers say that the extreme heat wave may have affected bird reproduction and feeding, although a single year is not enough to directly link the phenomenon to long-term climate change. A well-known park in Toronto, visited by thousands of people and nature enthusiasts, is signaling a concerning change in the world of migratory birds. The Bird Research Station at Tommy Thompson Park recorded a significant decline in the number of birds captured and monitored during the spring and summer season of 2025 compared with historical averages. The station is located in one of the most important bird migration corridors in Toronto. Every morning, researchers check special nets where songbirds are temporarily captured in order to be measured and recorded for research purposes. According to researcher Shane Abernathy, on normal days, the station can record up to 150 birds, while during peak migration days, the number can exceed 200. But the 2025 annual report showed a noticeable decline. Researchers particularly observed fewer young birds that had successfully managed to leave their nests during the breeding season. One of the main suspected factors was the extreme heat wave that hit the region in June, when the apparent temperatures exceeded 40 degrees Celsius. Experts explain that extremely high temperatures can create serious problems for nests, as parents are not always able to reduce the temperature enough to protect young birds. However, researchers emphasize that data from only 1 year cannot be directly linked to long-term climate change. Experts from the organization, Birds Canada, say that rising temperatures may also affect the food chain. If insects appear earlier in the spring, their timing may no longer match the arrival of migratory birds that depend on them. From many nature observers, the change is already noticeable. Some say that this season, the park appears quieter and less filled with the songs of birds. Researchers continue monitoring to understand whether this was a temporary situation or a sign of a larger change in Toronto's urban ecosystem. An attack in Nigeria's Plateau state has left at least 20 people dead, renewing concerns about security in a region affected by years of community conflict. Authorities have deployed additional forces, while residents say security measures are not enough. Another bloody attack has shaken central Nigeria, leaving at least 20 people dead in Plateau State. The incident took place in the Bokos area, a region that for years has faced repeated violence between communities and conflicts that have caused hundreds of deaths. According to police, the attackers entered the community during the weekend, causing an armed confrontation with security forces. Police spokesperson Alfred Alabo said officers faced the attackers in a fierce battle before they fled the area. 18 people were found dead at the scene, while 2 others later died in hospital, bringing the total number of victims to 20. Residents and local leaders have expressed anger and fear over the lack of security. A pastor from the area said that many people feel unprotected in the face of continuous attacks. Meanwhile, authorities have called for unity and urged communities not to be further divided by violence. The police commissioner in Plateau has ordered an increase in the forces on the ground, including special units and mobile patrols, with the aim of preventing further attacks. Nigeria has faced major security challenges for years, from community conflicts to the activities of armed groups in several regions. Despite repeated security operations and government promises to stop the violence, similar attacks continue to affect local communities, increasing pressure on authorities to find a long-term solution. An independent UN investigation has published a report accusing Israeli authorities and forces of serious violations of international law against Palestinian children in Gaza and the West Bank. Israel has rejected the accusations, calling the report false and saying that its operations target only Hamas militants. A new report by an independent United Nations Commission has caused strong international reactions after raising serious accusations regarding the treatment of Palestinian children during the conflict in Gaza. According to the investigation published in Geneva, Israeli authorities and security forces have committed serious violations of international law, including allegations of war crimes and crimes against humanity. The report analyzed the actions of Israeli forces since the beginning of the war in October 2023, following Hamas's attacks on Israel. Investigators say that children have been among the most affected victims of the conflict. According to the report, more than 20,000 children have been killed in Gaza during the period analyzed, representing around one-third of the reported victims. The Commission says that Israeli military operations have used weapons with high destructive power in densely populated civilian areas, causing a high number of casualties among children. The report is based on thousands of verified materials, including video footage, audio recordings, satellite images, and interviews with victims, witnesses, and healthcare workers. Israel has responded by strongly denying these accusations. Israeli authorities have described the report as defamatory and stated that military operations have targeted Hamas fighters and not the civilian population. Israeli officials have also argued that the report does not take into account the way Hamas, according to them, operates within populated areas. This report comes after several previous international investigations that have raised similar concerns regarding the humanitarian situation in Gaza. As the war continues to cause severe consequences for civilians, the international community continues to face pressure to determine responsibility and demand respect for international humanitarian law. Peru's left-wing presidential candidate, Roberto Sanchez, declared that he will not recognize the result of the presidential elections, claiming that the purpose was accompanied by irregularities. Meanwhile, his conservative rival, Keiko Fujimori, holds a narrow lead that is considered almost impossible to overcome. Peru is facing the risk of a new political crisis following strong statements by left-wing presidential candidate Roberto Sanchez, who announced that he will not recognize the result of the presidential runoff. In a public statement in the capital Lima, Sanchez accused electoral institutions of a lack of transparency and claimed that electoral fraud is taking place. He said that his team has requested the cancellation of several results and a recount of disputed votes. However, so far, no public evidence has been presented to support the claims of manipulation of the electoral process. Meanwhile, his conservative rival, Keiko Fujimori, has created a lead of more than 43,000 votes. According to official data, she has received around 50.11% of the counted votes. Peru's electoral authorities had announced that fewer votes remain to be counted than the difference separating the two candidates, making Fujimori's advantage practically impossible to overcome. The final result is expected to be officially announced in mid-July, after the procedures for verifying disputed votes are completed and all ballots from abroad are processed. Analysts warn that Sanchez's rejection of the result could deepen political divisions in Peru, a country that has experienced years of institutional instability and continuous clashes between political forces. As the country waits for the official announcement of the winner, attention is focused on electoral institutions and how they will manage one of the closest presidential races in Peru's history. Brazilian football legend Ronaldinho will return to the field after signing with Italian third division club Ravenna FC. The former Ballon d'Or winner aims to inspire the new generation of footballers more than a decade after his last professional club match. One of the biggest names in the history of world football is making a surprising return to the field. Brazilian legend Ronaldinho has announced his return to football after joining Italian third division club Ravenna FC. The news was made public during an event organized in Miami, where the former Brazilian star appeared alongside club owner Ignacio Cipriani and presented the new jersey with his name. Ronaldinho, now 46 years old, has not played football at club level since 2015. However, he said that the decision to return came as a result of his long friendship with the Cipriani family and his desire to contribute to a new sporting project. The former Ballon d'Or winner said he hopes his return will serve as inspiration for young people who follow the dream of becoming professional footballers. Ronaldinho is considered one of the most spectacular players football has ever known. He won the World Cup with Brazil in 2002 and shined with major clubs such as FC Barcelona and AC Milan. During his career, he became a symbol of creativity and entertainment on the field, earning the admiration of millions of fans around the world. For Ravenna FC officials, bringing Ronaldinho on board is a major step toward increasing the club's international profile and attracting the attention of football fans around the world. While many thought his career had ended long ago, Ronaldinho is proving that football still has room for his magic. Turkish authorities arrested 209 people in counter-terrorism operations just days before the NATO summit that will be held in Ankara. The opposition and human rights organizations accuse the government of using security as a justification to restrict civil liberties. Turkey has launched a large security operation by arresting 209 people as part of terrorism investigations, while the country is preparing to host the upcoming NATO summit. According to the Ankara prosecutor's office, arrest warrants were issued for 241 suspects linked to the ISIS terrorist organization and several radical left-wing groups. The operation took place only one day after local authorities announced a temporary ban on protests, press conferences, and public gatherings in the capital Ankara. The measures will be in effect from June 28th until July 10th, a period that coincides with the organization of the NATO summit. Authorities argue that the restrictions are necessary to guarantee security during the international event. However, human rights organizations and opposition parties have strongly reacted against the operation. According to them, among those arrested are a well-known journalist, LGBTQ+ rights activists, left-wing politicians, and several lawyers. The opposition has described the action as an attack on democracy and fundamental freedoms. Criticism has focused on the claim that the NATO summit is being used as a pretext to restrict political and social activity. On the other hand, the Turkish government insists that the operations are part of the fight against terrorism and that national security remains a priority, especially ahead of an event of major international importance. Recent developments are expected to increase the debate over the balance between security and civil liberties in Turkey, as international attention is increasingly focused on the situation in the country ahead of the NATO summit. The economic slowdown in Russia and high borrowing costs are severely affecting the construction sector, leaving thousands of apartment buyers waiting. Many housing projects are facing major delays, while buyers are seeking justice in courts. Hundreds of families in Russia are facing uncertainty about their future, as many housing projects remain unfinished due to the crisis affecting the construction sector. In the Ostafayevo residential complex, on the outskirts of Moscow, apartment buyers have filed lawsuits against the construction company, claiming that delivery deadlines have been repeatedly postponed since March 2025. Among them is Elena Skripichenko, who says buyers have not received clear explanations about the reasons for the delays. According to her, some residents entered the construction site to speak with workers who claim they are not being paid regularly. The construction company Samolet, one of the largest in Russia, has stated that it is aware of customers' concerns and is making efforts to speed up the completion of all the apartments. However, it has not provided concrete details about the causes of the delays. Problems in the construction sector come after a period of growth in 2023, when state-subsidized mortgage loans encouraged record levels of residential construction in the country. But later, the reduction of subsidies and the increase in interest rates severely affected the industry. Official data shows that the area of completed housing fell by 28% in the first quarter of the year compared with the same period a year earlier. The country's largest bank, Sberbank, has warned that the construction sector has entered a period of stagnation. Analysts link the economic slowdown to high financing costs and the continuing impact of the war in Ukraine on the Russian economy. This has created major difficulties for construction companies, but also for thousands of citizens who have invested their savings in homes that are still not ready to be occupied. As buyers demand answers and solutions, the crisis in the construction sector is emerging as another major challenge for the Russian economy in 2026. This is all we have prepared for you today. To never miss an update, follow us on social media, subscribe on YouTube, and visit our website at www.nsmtv.ca. Thank you for joining us.